Hey guys, Basil Wolf from Grayson Hobby, and today we got a new product.
The Diatone GT 5-inch stretch.
All right, so this is the latest edition from the Diatone 5-inch series.
Yeah, so guys, the plug and play came out a little later than I thought it would. The 3-inch, everybody's familiar with the 3-inch, the Marauder from Diatone, the 3-inch stretch. Basically, they took the 3-inch design, stretched it out to 5-inch, and this is what we got here. Kind of based off the old 2017 as far as some of the electronics, the motors and all that, but beefed up to 2018 standards. So now this is the new of the new.
Right. So in this video, we're going to go over the quad, do an open unboxing, then we're going to go over the components, a little bit of detail. We're going to open it up, take it apart, look inside, and then for a bonus, we're going to show you how to install an XM, and we're going to show you a way to use a solderless connection for your R-SXR.
Yeah, so two of the most common, easy to get FrSky receivers, we're going to show you how to set those up for.
So if you don't know how to solder, watch all the way through the end. We'll put that at the very end. And here it is.
So I think this is a great quad. If you want some high performance, it's going to be just stupid fast and really nice quality. It looks great. Diatone always does a great job of making their stuff look amazing.
Yep. And if you need parts, we got the motors there.
Yeah, even the frame kit's fairly cheap.
And the ESCs somewhere, or the flight controller, ESCs right there, the ESCs right there, flight controller there. Oh, and frames right there. Yeah. All right, well, what we got here today?
So we have the 2018 GT M5. This is the Stretch X or SX model. So the box there. This is something you guys need to look at when you get it. It talks about the warning if you have any issues, the service.support at diatone.hk ones, but also about the torque specs for the screws and stuff like that. So take a glance at that before you do anything with the quad.
All right.
You also get a sticker set here. Yay, stickers. Props. These are 5042 gem fans. These are tri-blades. They come with clear props. A whole bag of accessories. Yeah, you get two lipo straps.
Battery belts.
Yeah, they're battery straps. Yeah. Unfortunately, they don't have like the silicone backing on them. I wish they kind of did, but other than that, they look like pretty strong straps. I tend to use our house brand ones, but so you get a couple zip ties here. That's for like mounting the receiver antenna, stuff like that. The prop nuts. A little tiny Amway antenna, so this is like the little dipole antennas, which works pretty good for racing. You get the little rubber, the little silicone anti-slip pad for the battery. You get the receiver harness.
Sticker on it, or adhesive?
It's adhesive at the bottom. You get two little breakout harnesses. This is a replacement for like the camera, the buzzer, and stuff like that, and the VTX that goes from the Fury F3S. This is the wire harness for your receiver, and then it comes with just a generic 4-pin harness if you want to run like a UART port, like smart audio, anything like that. And the last thing is the quad itself comes in a little bag.
All right, that's a beauty right there.
All right, so here's the quad. This is where the money's at. So we have the Stretch X platform here. Now this has gone through several changes before it actually got released. The frame itself hasn't really changed as far as I know, but the electronic components went through several variations before the actual production model.
So that's a prototype, so Diatone does do their homework and R&D, but let's go over this.
A couple changes they did from the original. They are no longer using the Diatone G1 sniper camera. They are using a RunCam Micro Swift. The VTX is now, instead of being soldered to the flight controller, it is on its separate filter board. So this board has the buzzer integrated, which a lot of people were going, hey, why is there no buzzer on the 2017? Well, now it has the buzzer. It has the little capacitor like we did in the GTR 90 and the M3s. No longer, the VTX is no longer directly soldered to the flight controller. It's on a separate board. They're using the Unify, TBS Unify style mounting. Instead of the screw that locks down and clamps it, it actually has the 2 screws to secure it, which I like that better. Makes it easier.
SMA or RPS?
This is gonna be SMA. And the motors, now, here's the other thing. We got the motors. These are the SunnySky Edge Racing motors. These are 2306 and a 2450 kV. Now SunnySky produces, they're claiming about 1600 grams of thrust on 4-cell with a 50-45 prop, like a Cyclone prop, and that's just gobs of power. Now this is slightly lower because the factory winding does like about 50 amps at full throttle on a stand. Granted, it'd probably be a little less in the air because you're not, resistance. This is a 2450 kV, so if we're getting around 1600 grams of thrust in this quad, that's like a 12 to 1 power to weight ratio on this thing once you get a battery and everything on it. So this thing is gonna haul ass.
Those are nice motors. So I notice it has a hollow shaft.
Yes, this is like a naked bottom version of the old one, but it's no longer the silver windings. They went back to the copper windings.
All right, so ESCs, this is the hot item right there.
All right, so this is the Mamba 40. This is an ESC. I believe it's only 10 millimeters wide. It's longer. It's running D-Shot 600. It is not D-Shot 1200. Whether or not you'd really notice a difference, I don't know. That's for the individual to decide on that one. But the ESCs are super thin. You see how thin these arms are. And I've tried like using SpeedX ESCs and all that, and every ESC I've come across is too long. And I'm not a big fan of 4-in-1 ESCs. I like being able to replace the one ESC if need be. So this is a great alternative to a 4-in-1 and keeping everything in line, streamlined.
Yeah, those are nice. Those are rated, what are they rated?
They're a 40 amp ESC, 3 to 4 cell use.
3 to 4.
Yeah, people have used 5, but please don't do it. That's a at your own risk kind of thing. And they have a 50 amp burst on them. So they're D-Shot 600. They run, I think on BL Heli, they're like CH40 is what they identify as, if anybody cares. But they're D-Shot 600, 40 amp ESC with a 50 amp burst. So that's right in with the spec of these motors, which is what I was getting at.
Okay, so you don't need to run.
So the motors are pretty much, the ESC and motors are paired together, very smooth. And I have run that combo on one of the prototypes here. I really like the way this flew with these motors and ESCs. So I think it's an excellent combination power plant system on this thing. I do wish it was an F4 flight controller. However,
what is it?
It is an F3.
Okay.
So it's the Fury F3S on this particular model. However, it works very well. You're running the new beta flight, you're probably not going to notice much of a difference. It flies so well, it's hard to say, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. It just flew that well. Okay. Now, the one thing I will say with this one, it is a little heftier than, say, like the race model or whatever.
All right, it's going to scale.
So how many grams do you think this is?
200.
Oh no, 319.
319.
So this is actually heavier than the proposed specs. I believe when they first advertised it was going to be around 280, 290. Not sure what happened there. I'd love to see this under 300 grams though.
So we don't even have the props or anything like that.
But let's see what the race model.
So they had.
Yeah, so under 300 grams, the race. So. Yeah, that's with the props and everything. Yeah. So this model is probably more suited for freestyle, but I do know a lot of guys that are racing these things and absolutely love them. There's a pretty big following for these lately. Yeah, the one thing I will say is the aluminum. Everyone pretty much comes to agreement on the aluminum does strip out easier if you're really cranking it down and everything. However, you're not having to open it and close it that much to work on these, the way how clean this is done. Let me get a wrench and actually show you as far as...
Let me get you a tool right here.
All right, so let me just get this real quick. To get to the flight controller or anything like that, for any reason, you just need 2.5 here. You'll unscrew these 2 screws.
Those are the 2 front underneath the camera.
Yeah.
All right.
And you don't even have to take them all the way out, just enough to get them out. And then an M2, I usually take...
So that one's gonna be the back right there.
Yeah, an M2. Loosen the screw there, and then you gotta remember, when you unplug this, you can either unplug the whole main harness here or the camera itself. And unplug the camera because it's easier.
Yeah. Okay. So you
so we got
the camera. Just
and
like
then this
little, just like the M3
yeah. So basically, it's got the caging to it. Now you can get to everything on the flight controller. Now on this particular one, there's 3 nuts that hold this top filter board. So if you want to see what this thing looks like,
yeah, on the floor. Yep. So.
All right. So we got the 3 out there. Buzzer, this is the wire for the buzzer, which is on this top plate, so you get there, and that's the power cord right here for the actual power for the VTX. Okay. So you get that there. I'm gonna pull this aside and we can see how this is wired up here. They did a pretty good job of keeping everything pretty simple. You got your 4 ESCs soldered in there, you got your signals and powers and grounds on there. You have the main harness here for your camera and your buzzer. This, they've actually, instead of soldering the VTX here, they put on this to the filter board. That way they can keep the video as clean as possible and add the buzzer and make it a nice clean setup. You gotta remember there is little shims here, so you don't want to lose those when you're working on them if you turn it upside down or anything like that.
Point to the shim real quick.
The little spacers, little standoffs.
Gotcha.
And then the rubber isolators.
Yeah, they're clear.
Yeah, they're clear.
Right? Okay.
As far as the pinout on this thing, you have your camera leads on this harness here. Now there is other stuff if you need it here, and you can pull the diagram off Diatone's website. This one here would be if you're running like external current sensor and stuff like that. VBAT ports and all that, but this is all going to be, because we're running power straight to the flight controller, it's integrated, it has the current sensor and everything. This would be your boot button if you need it, but it's getting to the point we're not really needing to use that much unless we flash on firmware and need to get it back. Your receiver pin out here is this connector here, and again your first pin is 5 pins here from front to back. The one farthest forward is your ground, the second one's your 5-volt. The third one's actually your PPM. Most people are not going to use PPM anymore. The fourth one is the S bus, and the very last one, which I was mistaken on earlier, is actually 3.3. I had the 3.3 after the 5 volt, but 3.3 volt is in the rear. So if you're using Spectrum, you're not gonna probably use the 5 volt. You're gonna use the 3.3 if you're using regular satellite. If you're using the 4649 receiver, you'll use the 5 volt. The rear ports here is where you're gonna find your UART1 and your UART2 ports. So those are the UART ports there if you need them for like smart audio or anything like that, or if you want to set up a different camera and run the camera control and all that. And now, as you were asking about the wiring earlier, this is, instead of soldering the VTX, again, they put a wire harness coming off of it to run the VTXs, which is actually inside here.
Okay, so this is the part. This
is a filter board. This is a standalone object. They actually do sell this separately if anybody wants to get one for their own. But this, the Unify Pro V3 is actually underneath here. But pretty much everything's pretty well protected. You don't have to worry about the UFL connector popping off because the shield kind of holds it down. All pretty well designed. Everything's pretty clean on here.
Its own little stack, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I like that. I haven't seen this before.
Yeah, this is new, and this is one of the ones that you're changing. Basically, Diatone was really listening to everybody talking about the video. On the older models, that was one thing, that you were getting noise in the video and all that, so they really stepped up the game with trying to filter the video to make it as clean as possible. All right, so basically, one of the things that came across on the older 27 GT was the Amway antennas that came with them, like these guys right here.
That's what I came with.
What would happen is when you'd crash, the antenna would bend and get into the props and get chewed up. Well, twofold the reason why they're coming with this. One, it's actually a great little backup antenna if you're flying around. If you tear up your other antennas, it's good to have because one, it doesn't get in the way of the props. No matter how you position it, it doesn't get in the way of the props. It's actually a nice little antenna for a dipole. It works well.
And I guess if you crash, it's gonna just bend and not get broken, I guess.
Yeah, it's durable. It's good to have in the bag, stuff like that. Chances are, if you guys have been flying, you already had a Wizard, you already had another quad that you've already bought antennas for, and you have your personal choice of antenna. So Diatone decided, hey, let's not force anybody to buy some $30 antenna they don't want, so we're just gonna include the basic one, keep the price of the quad down, and everybody can put whatever they want on it.
Okay, so would you still recommend this guy?
If that's what you want. I usually use like the Emax Pagodas myself.
Which is right here. So either one will work.
The Amway's probably a little more durable with the cap on it, but the Pagodas, I like the Pagodas.
So it won't hurt to upgrade by yourself. You probably don't need to upgrade with a couple people, maybe?
If you're flying by yourself, this will probably work okay. If you get a lot of breakup, if you're flying other places and all that, yeah, probably switch to circular polarized is going to be better, but this works.
All right.
We are running Betaflight 321 as the current version as of this production here.
Did you name that? It says Diatone GT. Did you do that? Or
no, this is all default.
Okay.
This is out of the box. I haven't touched anything. All right, so we're running Betaflight 321 on here, so you're going to want to use the new app for the 10.02 or 10.2. All right, and as far as what else?
Battery, what size battery? We didn't go over that.
4 cell, 3 cell, 4 cell, 1300, 1500, somewhere in there.
So standard size quad FPV, right?
Yeah.
Can we power it up and see what the screen looks like?
Do you have,
Fat sharp one, hopefully. Yep, there it is, and there I am.
So when you first power this up, you're gonna see flicker if you're inside on the fluorescent lights because it's a PAL camera. PAL uses a similar refresh rate as the lights. I got the R-SXR receiver installed, so again, this is Betaflight.
Okay.
So it's gonna have Betaflight OSD, so you can go to the different profiles and all that stuff. So anybody that's familiar with Betaflight OSD, it's gonna have all that. Just a couple specs I might have skipped over as far as the flight controller itself. This has already been used in one of the prior models, but it's a Fury F3S flight controller. It has MPU 6000 gyro, which is the one that's not very sensitive to vibrations. It's a good all-around gyro. It can only run 8K, can't run 32K. And being an F3, you're probably gonna run 4K on this. Because the processor's also limiting here with all the Betaflight filters and all that. All right, guys. You screwed you. Go. All right, guys. Thanks for watching the unboxing video of the Diatone 5-inch stretch. For those of you asking about the wire harness, I know that's going to come up in the questions. We're going to try to get the harnesses pre-made so you don't have to butcher up any of your existing wiring
or solder,
or do any soldering again, because nobody wants to solder if they don't have to. Kind of thing nowadays. It's a plug and play, right? You should just plug and play.
Right.
So that's what we got here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned. We're gonna probably do some more stuff based on either this one or maybe another version of it coming soon.
Yes. So give us the comments below what you want to see next with this guy. We definitely have a flight video coming up. We definitely have a speed test coming up in the near future, and we definitely have
more stuff. But this is the first of 3 in the 5-inch series from Diatone in the plug and play models.
Yes. All right.
And leave it to Basil to screw it up.
All right, receiver. That's the $1 million question.
All right, so this is one thing I like that Diatone's done that other companies are not doing. The receiver plugs in. You'd have to do some wiring. We are gonna have a little wire harness for these if you're gonna use an R-SXR receiver. If you're gonna use an XM Plus,
just use R.
Well, XM Plus works fine. I use a lot of those, but you'd have to solder. So you'd have to take the factory harness that comes with it. If you're gonna do an XM Plus, you would need the first 2 here for power and ground, and then you'd need S-Bus, which is the 4th wire. So the 3rd one's PPM, we don't want that. So it's gonna be these right here. So you'd solder this to the respective pins on the XM Plus receiver. I wouldn't use an XM on this because it's a 5-inch quad.
And that part plugs into
these right here. You can just D-pin. You just take a little X-Acto knife, lift it up. You can cut them straight off if you want. I usually lift the pins up a little thing and pull them out.
So go over the R-SXR, because that seems like
the R-SXR, this is a receiver. This is what I'm using in like this guy and all that.
Okay.
I like the R-SXR in this case because with the provided wires between the R-SXR and what comes with a Diatone, we can do 0 soldering and get the receiver installed.
Yay!
So this, all right, so Diatone has this harness and this harness here. Then the R-SXR comes with these 2 harnesses here. Obviously, this is not gonna work. This is not gonna work because these are solder options. We don't want to solder, so we're gonna do this the, I guess, hard way if you don't know how to solder, if your soldering is sketchy at best, this is gonna be the best way to do it.
All right.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this connector that normally comes with it. We're gonna take an X-Acto knife, just careful not to cut your fingers off or anything like that. And you're gonna lightly lift up on these pins. And if it makes it easier to do one at a time, you might not get them all at once. Just go under here, lift the pins up. Careful you don't go too much because you can break them. And you just do it a couple times.
So you're just pulling up the little plastic tab.
I'm pulling the tabs out.
Which I've done many times.
Maybe somewhat harder way of doing it, I guess.
If you can't solder, this is the only way to do it then.
This is the cleaner way to do it. Yeah. Now we're gonna take the harness that comes with the R-SXR and we're gonna lift those pins out. These are a little easier because they're bigger, but again, don't cut your fingers. All right, that's out. So now we got the 2 connectors we're gonna need to get this set up.
Okay.
But we need the wires, and unfortunately we don't have that, so we're gonna go to this replacement harness they come with. Hopefully you didn't break the one that came with it for no reason other than
we're using
all
3 harnesses. Really.
We're gonna use up what we got here, okay. So we definitely need to carry some spares.
Okay.
So what we're gonna do is take this camera lead harness, and we're gonna actually take the wires from it and put it into these 2 pin sets. So what I'm gonna do is take this side out first, and it's gonna be 3 pins down in here. Let me get
So again, you're de-pinning the plastic.
Yeah, so got that.
Okay.
Now we're gonna use, there's 2 different size connectors. Remember, we got the smaller ones that just came out of this harness here. That's gonna be that 5-pin connector that came with the Diatone that's gonna go into the flight controller. So what we need to do, before I take it apart and mix them up, because they're very close in size, I'm gonna do it in this order so I don't confuse anything or damage any connectors. So we got this harness here, and we're gonna hold it right side up. And the first pin we're gonna have is gonna be the ground wire. So I'm gonna need the black wire here. And the order on this connector doesn't matter yet. There's a little tab on one side and like you see a little L shape to it. The one with the little lip on the top, it's got like a little prong. That's gonna go in facing down. So the little fins are gonna go upwards, the little shark fin. We got that in there. So that's in. Now, if it comes out on you, that's probably because those pins got pinched, they got lifted up too much. So what you can do is kind of just push all those little plastic retaining tabs in prior to putting the connector in, and it'll keep it from coming out. So then we got the second wire is the red, so we need the power. So again, the little fin facing up. Put that in. Now the next one would have been PPM. We're not going to be using PPM, we're going to be using serial S-Bus for Taranis, okay? So we're going to skip the 3rd pin and go to the 4th pin. It's in there. Okay, so this is the side that's going to go into the receiver, or into the flight controller. Now we need to pin it for the R-SXR. okay? So what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna take the camera connector harness and take it out. So that's out. Now we need to figure out the pinout for the R-SXR. And there's really tiny letters on the bottom of it. The diagram, the manual is actually probably better to show you guys here. And if anybody's ever set one of these up, the first time you set up an R-SXR, you're probably going, why can I not get this thing to work?
It's always backwards.
It's because it comes set up, the harnesses, the little harness that we took apart was set up for
backwards.
Smart port. Now, on the receiver here, we have the receiver facing up here. We need the ground, and this is the connector, which is gonna go in there. So we need to use the ground, which is the black. So I'm gonna get that one first. And again, same concept, the little shark fin is actually gonna face down on this one because the connector goes in, oop, I'm sorry. So, save you guys a little bit of time on that one. Basically, the R-SXR receiver connector plugs in with the pins facing up. So what you have is ground, 5 volts, blank, because that would have been smart port, and then serial S-bus out, okay? So there's our connection harness.
And you made that for no solder.
Yeah, so now, using what we got between the receiver and that, and granted you have to buy an R-SXR receiver if you want to do it, this will give you the ability to hook it up without any soldering. So Diatone has also provided some, on the flight controller, there's actual solder pads here. So each one of these pins is connected to one of these solder pins, or pads. So you got ground, 5 volt, PPM, S-bus, and 3.3 volt.
I like this solderless option way better.
I think this always looks cleaner. Plus, I like the fact that you can easily change receivers. You don't have to worry about it.
All right, so that's it for the install?
Yeah, and in addition, for you guys that are more advanced and know a little bit about smart port and all that, with the R-SXR, you can take the white harness I was talking about earlier that I use the connector for, and take another one of these pins and run it to the smart port on here, run it to the proper port on the back, and run the UART on the back of the flight controller, and then you can have smart port set up. And if you want to get really fancy, you can do F port, but that's a whole nother video.